Hey guys, welcome back to our UFL weekly picks. And we're going to get ready for the week 8 matchups as well as the week 8 picks. And before we get to it, let's just talk about the standings right now as I look at my notes and let's see who's above and who's on the bottom. Let's start off with the XFL conference. Okay, the DC Defenders and the St. Louis Battlehawks continue to be the two top teams in that division, both at 5-2, with an interesting matchup coming down further during the season. That game probably will decide not just the division, but will position them in a better way once they get into the playoffs to get to that championship game. The Renegades are followed at 3-4. They just seem to be collapsing as the season continues to go on after such a strong start and looking good in the beginning of the year. And they're followed by the San Antonio Brahmas, 1-6, pretty much playing their worst football. The very disappointing season, considering they were in a championship game just a year ago. When you look at the USFL conference, we're also followed by two 5-2 teams, the Birmingham Stallions, the defending champs, along with the surprisingly solid playing Michigan Panthers at 5-2. And I really mean they're playing pretty much like an all-around group that's going to do some damage if they get into the playoffs. And I'm telling you right now, Bryce Perkins and Jordan Ta'amu, both leading both their teams and playing at MVP levels. Jordan Ta'amu, obviously, I've been critical of him at the beginning of the year and in some of the weeks beforehand, but lately he's been playing a whole lot better. I'm seeing a lot of improvement in his play, and that's the reason why they're 5-2. And he does have probably the best receiving unit in the UFL. They're followed by the Renegades, who have been, the Roughnecks. Roughnecks, not the Renegades, people, the Houston Roughnecks. Okay, and wow, that was a bad loss last night. It really was. It was a terrible loss. And, I was expecting the Roughnecks to once they got out to that 25-6 lead, I expected them to hold on to that lead and come up with a big upset this week. And instead, they collapsed in the third and fourth quarter. Their offense never got back on track the way they were playing in the first half. And that was such a disappointing loss, especially for Houston fans in the UFL. They dropped their record at 3-4 and possibly with a loss like that, probably demoralized their football team as well. The Memphis Showboats are right behind them at 1-6. They're not a bad football team. They just can't eke out the victories they need. I expect Memphis to at least get 2 more victories before the season ends, and maybe they could look a lot better than what the record indicates. But anyway, that's pretty much where we're at with the conferences of the XFL and the USFL. And, before I even put the whiteboard up to show you what I picked, let me show you on my notes how I did this weekend. I went 3-1 on the money lines. Could have been 4-0 if the Renegades would have held on to that victory. Unfortunately, I go 3-1 with the loss. On the over and unders, oh boy, 1-3. Just not having, you think you're going to get it right with the overs, and then they go under, and then you think you're going to get it right with the unders, and they go over. Sometimes I base these over and unders on the type of contest that you're expecting from two teams matching up, and unfortunately, I just can't get those combined scores right, and Vegas continues to kill me on that. Against the spread, I went 2-1-1. The push being yet again that Renegades game. Could have went 3-0, but I pushed because I took the +1, and the game ended with the Panthers winning by 1. So that was a push, and it put my record at 2-1-1 for the weekend. And overall, my money line, I'm 17-11. I wish I could do better because that's the easiest of all 3 of them, right? You're just picking which team is better and which team is going to win. It has nothing to do with the spread, has nothing to do with the over and under. That should be the easiest thing for any sports bettor to pick. Unfortunately, I'm just 6 games above 500, 17-11. My over and unders, I'm at 16-12 for the season. For the most part, we're above 500 on both categories, but we could do a lot better, especially the over and under. So that is just so hard to get. But the fact that I'm 16-12, we're doing a lot better than expected. Okay, it's not great, but at least we're doing a whole lot better than expected. Hopefully, you guys are doing better. Against the spread, I'm 14-9-1. The push again, yet again, that crazy ending to that Arlington's Panthers game. So I'm 14-9-1. Okay, so that's my overall record. Let me now post up my whiteboard, and then we got the early lines. It's Monday morning. We got the early lines, and I just want to make sure that you guys get this, and hopefully we're correct this weekend. You're going to notice something crazy about this whiteboard, and you probably noticed it already. I'm taking all the games with the over and under with the overs. Can you believe this? With the overs. That's like, you talk about, games influencing you and your mind. This past season, a lot of overs are hitting. And I just feel like this weekend's no different. I think all the overs are going to hit. I'm looking at the matchups, and it just indicates that you're going to get some solid games out here. That's not to say they're not going to be defensive battles. Okay, let me put my whiteboard over here for a sec. I'll be showing you the whiteboard as we go along. But it's just, I just feel that I go by what I see with the matchups, right? So I base it upon, is this team defensively well sound? Is that team has an offense? And then I try to get what I think is a combined score in my head. And then I try to project that into my over and unders. I mean, that's probably the best way I can do it. I know you guys have a different way of looking at it. And like I said, listen, what I put up doesn't necessarily mean that that's how you got to run with, all right? What I'm trying to do is trying to put up, how do you say, I'm trying to put up a way where you guys could mix and match. Maybe you may not roll with what I put up and maybe go the opposite direction, okay? I'm just trying to give you an edge from what I'm seeing, my perspective on these games from what I'm seeing. But anyway, I took some notes from this past weekend, and they're going to affect some of these matchups. And now the first matchup that I'm going to talk about is going to be the Memphis Showboats, 1-6, against San Antonio, 1-6 at San Antonio. And obviously, no playoff indication in this game. And at 1-6, I really doubt that these two teams are even going to smell the playoffs. They could make it interesting by pulling some upsets down the road because they will be playing teams that are trying to position themselves. But this is a matchup where, as a sports bettor, you want to play with, right? You want to have fun with this matchup, So if you're going to do a 3-leg parlay, right? You take the Showboats, right? I think they're just better than San Antonio. Let's face it, San Antonio's defense does not make the big plays. They just don't seem like a team that finds ways to help out their offense. I mean, their defense has not played well at all. And I think Memphis would dress a win at quarterback. They got a nice combination at running back with Wes Hills and Deneric Prince. They got two good wide receivers on the outside, Jonathan Adams, Lassiter, and there's this other kid who last night played very well. I'm sorry if I'm being disrespectful and forgot his name, but you know who I'm talking about if you saw the game. And I just feel like the Memphis Showboats are just one of those teams that really shouldn't be 1-6. At best, I think they should be 3-4. To be quite honest, they really should be 3-4. They've played some tough games. They played against good teams and played them well. And it seems like somewhere in the third, fourth quarter, they seem to collapse at the wrong time. Whether it's a defensive breakdown. We saw one game where penalties cost them a game. And then we saw another one where a costly turnover towards the end was the difference. And then when you look at San Antonio, you say to yourself, well, what happened? Well, both these teams went through coaching changes, which is interesting, right? You had Jim Turner taking over Ken Wisenhunt and being an interim coach. He's done pretty much the best he could. Jim Turner is a good coach, but, players have spoke about him in a positive way. And then you got San Antonio's coach, Peyton Pardee, who, same thing, Wade Phillips, unfortunately had to take a leave of absence. He was forced into to take over for the team, but he's not a bad coach either. He's really an enthusiastic coach who tries to get the best out of his players, and his players will run through walls for this guy. Unfortunately, it's not transitioning onto the football field. There just seems to be a situation there that I can't figure out, whether it's on the defensive side, maybe the DC, the defensive coordinator, I don't have his name off the top of my head. Maybe he's not putting them in the proper position. They're not making the big plays on defense to help this team out. Offensively, they do have somewhat of weapons. Unfortunately, they started the season slow with the quarterback problem they were having with Kellen Mond, really disappointing. Guardino, I think is his name, Guaradino, the backup, looked like he sparked some life into it, but that also did not pan out well. And then they brought in Kevin Hogan off the couch from retirement, and surprisingly, he's played well at the position. He's got a decent arm. He could get the ball out there. His NFL experience is showing, but he is a veteran. He is a guy that was retired for a couple of seasons and came off the bench, off the couch. But again, John Trey Kirkland on the outside, their main receiver, has been having a so-so season, dropping passes. We saw that big drop a couple of weekends ago. He does have splashes where he makes big plays. They have a fantastic tight end in Elise Mack, which they really don't use much. I have no idea why the tight ends are not part of this offense at all. I really don't get it because he's a solid tight end. He did score a touchdown a couple of weekends ago, and you try to figure this out. I believe he scored one this past weekend too. You try to figure this out, right? If you incorporate your tight ends, it might open up a little bit of the outside, might open up even the running game. I mean, these guys can block. Okay, they got themselves Aiden Robbins at running back. Okay, and you got Anthony McFarland. Okay, and you're trying to build that offense around those two, right? And then you brought in a guy, Jay Sean Corbin, I believe is his name, right? Jay Sean Corbin. I'm trying to get that name into my head because from what I saw from him this past weekend, bursting through the offensive line with big runs, huge runs, definitely they found themselves another running back. You got a 3-headed running back and they're just not using them properly. I don't understand if the OC is just not on the same page or it's just the fact that the defense just doesn't give them opportunities. But this is why they're 1-6, and this is why I'm going with Memphis this weekend on the money line. I'm going with the over 36. Could it be an under game? Because it's not like these offenses are blowing up the league. Okay, now San Antonio did give score some points this past weekend. Okay, so I mean, and Memphis, they did play a tougher team in St. Louis, but they kept breaking down in the red zone. So I don't know what you're going to get in this game, but I have a feeling that Vegas is trying to tell you to take the under, right? That would be the best thing to do, right? To take the under. But it's at 36. So this game could end up in my mind. I'm picturing this game going 20-17, right? I got Memphis with the +1, so they got to win this game by 2. That's the early line, so jump on it at +1, right? Because they're not even a favorite, which is shocking to me because I think Memphis is the better team, and they got San Antonio as -1. Am I going to get tripped up here? Because that looks like a track to me, right? I mean, it seems to me as a sports bettor, you come into this game and you go, hey, Memphis is a better team. They got a better defense. They got a solid quarterback. They got wide receivers that are one of the best in the leagues, right? They got a running back situation that's one of the best in the leagues. They just haven't been putting a full game together because the record doesn't indicate that they're a 1-6 team. I think they're at least 3-4, right? And yet Vegas has them as the underdog. They got them at +1. So I'm jumping on this, right? But is this a trap game for sports bettors, right? This could be a trap game. You're looking at Memphis, the over and unders at 36, and then you got Memphis as the underdog. Well, listen, if I'm a sucker for it, then I'm going to jump on it. I'm taking Memphis as the money line. I'm going with the over on the 36. I just see 20-17 or 23-17 playing out in my head. I don't see how this game's going to be 15-13. I mean, it could because, San Antonio's offense is just not consistent. It's not there. And I could say the same thing about Memphis, right? But for some reason, I think this is going to be one of those games where either team I think they both know we're out of the playoffs. We're just going to play this game. We're going to throw everything out of our playbook onto the field and let's see what happens. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen. That's why I'm taking the over. And I'm going to take the +1 because Memphis, to me, is a better team than San Antonio. If you feel differently, go the opposite way. Like I said, I'm throwing this out there because I'm trying to give you this edge for free. That's the best way to look at this, right? It's an edge that I'm giving you for free. So I don't want to stay too much on this game because we got 2 other games that have big time playoff implications. But when it comes to this game and this weekend, I would say that for week 8, this is one of those games where you could just do a 3-leg parlay just for entertainment purposes. Money line, I feel safe with the Memphis Showboats. The over 36, yeah, it's going to go both ways. Like I said, both these offenses are very, very inconsistent in the red zone. But this could also be a game where both coaches, both OCs decide, you know what, we're out of the playoffs. Let me open up the playbook. Guys, do what you got to do. Call your own plays, mix and match. Let's just blow up this playbook just for let's just see where we go. And I think that it's one of these games, right? 2 1-6 teams. They're going to put on a show, right, for the UFL fans. And I think Vegas is trying to trip us up with that 36, right? They dangle it in front of you like, okay, here's the bait. But we're not going to be suckers to it. I'm going to take the over on this. The overs have been hitting. Let's see if it continues. And again, +1 for Memphis. Let's move on to the next game. And again, it's not in particular order. I don't know if these games are going to be in this order. So just bear with me. I'm just trying to throw these games out there after I saw the early lines, and I'm trying to put it together. Okay, we got the Stallions at St. Louis. You couldn't pick a better game this weekend to watch. Birmingham, the defending champs, against a team that wants to become the champion, the St. Louis Battlehawks. What a game this is. And I'm taking the Battlehawks as my money line because it is at St. Louis. They do have the crowd for them in that game. I mean, that is an edge. And like I say with sports bettors, when it comes to football, you always give the home team a 3-point edge, right? Like a field goal edge, right? Because they're the home team. This is one of those games where almost like the what was that Michigan and Arlington game from this past weekend. It almost falls into that category, right? Where it could come down to the last second. So I'm going to take the over, which is 39.5. I do expect both teams to at least get 20 each, right? That puts them over 40. I don't know what the final score could be, 24-20, right? Or it could be somewhere around 23-17, something like that. The spread, I'm going to take the Battlehawks as the money line. I'm taking the over at 39.5. And I'm going to take, obviously, since I'm picking the Battlehawks to win, they are the favorite. I'm going to take that -1.5. They just have to win the game by 2, okay? I see them winning by 3, to be quite honest. But this is what's going on with the Stallions, right? They came off this victory in which they made an incredible comeback against a tough Houston defense, right? Houston Roughnecks. And they were down 25-6. And there were spots where it seems like Birmingham, with what's going on at the quarterback position, the injuries just continue to hurt this team at that position. Jamar Smith comes in, and he was moving the team, right? He uses his legs as well. This is a guy who was semi-retired, came back to play for the team back in May. They do have championship caliber players on their football team. This is a team that you do have to, take seriously, right? You do have to go into this game with a game plan for Jamar Smith. He's going to be the quarterback probably in this game. If Case Cookis plays, it's 2 different mentalities at the position, right? You got Jamar Smith, who can run the ball as well. He's mobile. He's a tough guy. He's a big guy. And I feel like when the opportunity presents itself, he takes off running. It's not a bad thing, considering that he's been limited to throwing the football. Maybe he's not confident enough. Because of that, because of that quarterback dilemma with the injuries and everything going on, it's why I'm edging the Battlehawks to win this game. Not just because they're at home, but because they're good enough to win a game like this. I believe that it's really a evenly matchup game. Probably by towards the end of the week, you're going to see either a pick 'em. The spread could go as low as -1, or it could go -1 to the Birmingham side. So when I look at the spread now, I want to jump on it. But maybe this is a game where you want to wait towards the end of the week where the spread goes. I think St. Louis wins this game. I think they could definitely cover. If it stays under two, yeah, I would roll with St. Louis. When it comes to the Birmingham Stallions, first of all, both these teams got a lot of good, talented players offensively, right? They do. Defensively, they could hold their own. They're both big play defenses. They rely on turnovers a lot. The interior line of the Birmingham Stallions is very good. They do get a good pass rush in there when necessary. We saw that against Memphis, against a mobile quarterback like Jalen McClendon. They do make the big turnovers, Birmingham. They're going to need that this weekend against this tough St. Louis team. And I could imagine that there might be 30,000, maybe more than 35,000 in this game. This is considered probably one of the championship caliber this weekend. It's going to definitely be a game for UFL fans to watch. The running game for Birmingham continues to be a question mark. You know, this past weekend they had a couple of big runs with Marable and Person. I believe that's his name, right? Person, or is it Pearsall? Again, I'm not trying to be disrespectful. It's just that, you got two running backs in his league with pretty much the same pronunciation, and it kills me. It kills me that I don't take that note down, right? But Birmingham has a running game that they really haven't been doing much this season. Just this past weekend, they did a little bit better. I saw some big runs coming from them. The quarterback position continues to be a problem with injuries. And now here comes the fourth guy stepping in there, right, in Jamar Smith, if he starts. If not, if Case Cooker starts, I'm still going to roll with St. Louis. Jamar Smith gives them a bit of a push at the position. I think the players do react well with Jamar. He's been there before. He's won a championship with this team before. So it's not like he hasn't been running this offense. He knows the offense. He knows Skip Holtz, okay? So when I try to look for an edge, I'm trying to see why the Battlehawks are my favorite for this game. There's a lot of reasons. I think Max Duggan falls into the same category as a younger version of Jamar Smith. I mean, let's face it, Max Duggan, he runs around like a crazed animal back there. I mean, he can throw the football. Okay, he's a capable of quarterback. But lately, from what I'm seeing from Max Duggan, is like he's relying more on his feet than his passing ability. That's not to say he's not a good passer. It's just that for some reason, this guy's taking off and taking on tacklers, doing some crazy shit back there at the quarterback position. But he's good enough to understand what he has on the outside, right? He's got Hakeem Butler, right? And he's got he's got a tight end in Sutherland, right? And then he's got running backs like Jacob Sellers, right? He's got Paxson over there. He does have talented players that he could get the ball to, right? But when I look at this game, that's what it's going to come down to. And I think the quarterback play from both teams is going to be why I'm rolling a little bit with St. Louis. Now, God forbid Max Duggan gets hurt in this game, then all hands are off. And I just think Birmingham, if you do in-game betting, maybe you just change your bet right there and try to get that money back because, St. Louis was a totally different offense with Manny Wilkins before his major injury. I thought Manny Wilkins was playing at an MVP level, had this team running at full cylinders. They were looking like an awesome group with this man at quarterback. I'm not saying that they took a step back with Max Duggan, but certainly not the same level as the way Manny Wilkins was playing. But Max Duggan is a capable quarterback. He plays with fire. Okay, you could see it with the way he plays. He gets in your face type of quarterback. So, I'm giving the edge to St. Louis because of the fact that Duggan is running this offense a whole lot better than the way the quarterbacks from Birmingham are at the moment, with all the injuries and all the, we start with Magoo, we go to Matt Corral, then we bring in, Case Cookers, and then he gets hurt. We bring him his backup. He gets hurt. Now we are down to Jamar Smith and Case Cookers again. So I don't know who's going to start this weekend. I'm thinking it's Case Cookers. He's going to recover from his injury. But I'm just giving St. Louis the money line here. As far as the over and under, 39.5 sounds about right. Again, the second game this weekend, I'm going to go with the over because I feel this game should be somewhere like 27-23 type game. I mean, both these offenses could get the job done. You got talented receivers on Birmingham side, right? And you got talented playmakers on St. Louis side. So I think both these offenses are going to find ways to trick each other, some trickery, maybe more motion in the backfield with the running backs coming out, maybe playing a big part. Like St. Louis, I give the edge because Jacob Sellers is fantastic out of the backfield. Not to say that Birmingham running backs don't get the job done, but they're not being utilized for some reason as much as I want them to. So I'm going to roll with St. Louis here. So money line the Battlehawks. The over and under at 39.5. Let's take the over on that. Okay, let's say that this game's definitely in the high 40s, maybe close to 50 at the end. And then I'm going to take the -1.5. Okay, the -1.5, of course, the favorites are the Battlehawks for this game. As a sports bettor on the outside looking in, this is a game where it could be another game where it could go either way. You could pick Birmingham, you could pick the under, and you could pick the +1.5. Me personally, I just feel St. Louis is trying to get to where they need to go. With Birmingham is more of, what the hell's going on with our quarterbacks? We're not getting consistent play. We got the talent. It showed in the Houston game how we came back and won the game. There was a lot of kick field goals. Every time we got in the red zone, we were inconsistent there. That inconsistency in the red zone is something that's going to plague them as they move further along. And like I said, the quarterback position, you're not getting consistent play. You're getting a lot of injuries. Case Cookers is a good quarterback, but he's not the best mobile quarterback. And any solid hit to him this year has resulted in him heading to the sidelines. Is Jamar Smith a better quarterback for this game? I think so. I think Jamar Smith could be the X factor in this game if he plays at all. If he starts, right, it's something to give St. Louis to think about now, right? Now they go into this game and they go, shit, who do we prepare for? Case Cookers for the majority of the game or Jamar Smith for the majority of the game? Seems to me with this fantastic comeback, I think Jamar Smith deserves a chance to start, which is going to make it so hard for people betting out there. But that's how I'm rolling. Let's get to the next game. With that said, another tough matchup, even though it's Michigan at Houston, okay? What can I say about Bryce Perkins? The man right now is playing at an MVP level. I think he is the MVP, to be quite honest. If the season ended today, he's my MVP at quarterback. I know Jordan Ta'amu fans out there are probably saying, oh, come on, man. How can you say that? Jordan's playing out of his mind. He's leading the league in passing. But I'm going to be quite honest with you. There's a lot of misplayed stats in any sport, right? You could get a guy that plays baseball, for instance, right? Could hit 60 homers, driving just 99 runs. Does that mean that he deserves the MVP and he played for a last place team? 99 runs? I've seen that happen. I could bring up stats from great home run hitters, and the stats were weird to look at. I remember one year, I think it was Dave Kingman of the Chicago Cubs. One year he hit 48 homers, and this is going way back, people. I know you guys are starting to look up like, what the hell is this old man talking about, Dave Kingman? Well, Dave Kingman back then was a home run hitter. Hit 48 one year for the Chicago Cubs, and I think he drove in like, I don't even know if he got over 100 RBIs that year, but it was one of his best years. But he played for a team that wasn't going nowhere. And that's what I'm getting from Jordan Ta'amu, right? Great, leading the league in passing, but if you really watch these games carefully, very inconsistent. But anyway, we're going to talk about that soon. Let's stick with this Michigan game. Okay, I got the Michigan Panthers to win this game. That's obvious, right? They're playing at Houston. Houston with a demoralizing loss, a game they needed to win, and were in total control at 25-6, and allow Birmingham to get back. Now, I'm going to tell you something. There was a couple of things that I noticed about this game. You saw Saquandre White having a hell of a game, right? He had that big run, right? It looked like, and at one point, he had a stat that said 5 carries, 62 yards, 1 touchdown. What did I say during the week in my previous video? You have to also use him coming out of the backfields, make the edge rushes of the Birmingham Stallions respect that, okay? And that way you keep the rush off of Jalen McClendon. They never did. I don't know. That's the whole second half. They just, where was Saquandre White? They just never used him. All of a sudden, they're throwing deep with Jalen McClendon. I get it. You want to mix it up a little bit. I get it. You want to confuse the Birmingham Stallions defense. But you got away from what was working well for you in that first half. And this is why I don't look at CJ Johnson as head coach material. I just don't. And this is a perfect example. The talented Houston Roughnecks. This is not a bad football team. They're very talented. They got a good defense that keeps you in games. And then they found their quarterback in Jalen McClendon. And yet, this coach couldn't find a way to get his quarterback to roll out against that Birmingham defense. He couldn't get the quarterback or the running backs to help out with the pass rush by splitting across. Okay? Kirk Merritt, guys like that. You got yourself the other running back, right? Saquandre White, a threat to come out of the backfield, and you didn't use him. That's why you lost. That's why you lost. Outside of the fact that your defense gave up some big plays, but that's why you lost. You did not control that second half. Birmingham did. Give kudos to Birmingham for figuring it out. You know, what did I tell you about that game? It was going to come down to coaching. Skip Holtz against C.J. Johnson. And Skip Holtz won. That's the difference. That's why Houston right now is at 3-4. And now they're going to play Michigan Panthers, a team that's trying to position themselves for the division. A team that's looking like a team that surprised everyone from the way they started the season to figuring it out. A trade that solidified their O-line, especially the running game is outstanding. They got a quarterback now that they're playing. There's no more Etling coming in and playing second quarter, third quarter crap. Now it's straight Bryce Perkins. And he's playing at an MVP level. He's the hottest quarterback right now in the UFL. And it's so obvious going into this game who's gonna get the edge. I'm not saying that Jalen McClendon is not a good quarterback because he's played outstanding since taking over for Houston. But it's the coaching staff for the Roughnecks that bothers me the most. I don't know what Chris Wilson and C.J. Johnson are doing because that second half was theirs to have. It was there to have. I didn't see enough blitzing against Birmingham. Okay, you got to make Case Cookers roll out. They did manage to get him out of the game, but it wasn't like Jamar Smith was Dan Marino. I mean, you could have came with some blitzes on this kid. You know, but they didn't do it. And that's why they're 3-4. They didn't know how to use the running backs in the second half. They should have just kept the ball on the ground. To be honest, they were gapping that linebacking unit of Birmingham. And they didn't do it. They got away from it. They got cute. Cute doesn't win you games. Sometimes sloppiness, defense, hard-nosed football wins you games. This game was 25-6. No excuses for Houston to have lost that game, but they did. Okay? And, I mean, it was crazy to watch. What an ending. And now they're going to play the Michigan Panthers with everything on the line for Michigan. They have to keep up with the first place team there, right? Michigan has to keep up with the Stallions, right? So Michigan, they're hoping that the Stallions lose to Birmingham, right? Because if they falter in this game, then it'll be tied still. But I just don't see it. I just see Michigan coming in with a red hot quarterback, a running game led by number 35, Toa. Okay. The human bowling ball. They got a fantastic running game. Bryce Perkins helps it too by running around back there, as mobile as he is, finds a way to get number 17 wide open because he's rolling around a lot, helping his receivers. Vaughns, number 17, Vaughns. Fantastic game he had the last game, right? Because of his receiving talent, he was able to help out Michigan towards the end and get victory out of defeat. Bryce Perkins' mobility is incredible. Guy just never goes down after the first guy gets to him. Just doesn't. And now Houston's going to have to figure out a way. Do we blitz this guy? Because if we're coming with a blitz, we got to bring him down. And if we don't bring him down, we're leaving everything wide open behind us. He's just going to take off for 10, 15-yard runs, maybe even heave the ball downfield to wide open receivers. That's how dangerous Michigan's becoming. They got a quarterback that rolls out. Now, God forbid something happens to Bryce Perkins, which we're not wishing nothing bad. I'm not trying to jinx it, folks. I'm just saying this game goes differently. But right now, I'm taking Michigan with the money line. Again, the over, 39.5. Okay, it seems like the whole weekend I'm going with the over. And I'm taking a -3.5. I just think Michigan should beat this team by 7. I could easily go plus 3.5 because maybe the Roughnecks might show up and say, you know what, we're going to play this game tough. We're still in it. We just got to win the next, 3 games. Hopefully get to 6-4, and maybe we have a shot, and it begins this weekend against another playoff opponent. Okay? And you got to hope that Houston, if you're a Houston fan, that your mindset is about forget last weekend. But I just think that's going to be hard to do. I just think that loss was demoralizing. It really was. I just think the players on the team were like, how do we let that happen? How do we allow us 25-6? Like, we were so confident going into halftime, and coming out, we were like, yeah, we got this. Let's just stick to the ground. I didn't understand the passing that was going on in the second half for Houston. I mean, were you trying to trip up the DC from Birmingham? I mean, DC's plan in the second half was simple. We're blitzing. We're keeping everything in front of us. If you want to hit us over the top, that's great. But we're going to make sure there's no more big runs against us. Everything that Birmingham did on defense in that second half was right in front. They were playing 7 to 8-man boxes at one point. And Houston fell for the trap. And they started throwing the ball around. Got away from what was working. Unfortunately, they lost. And now they're trying to come up with a game plan against one of the hottest teams in the league, the Michigan Panthers. I just don't see it. I just don't see Houston pulling the upset here. I don't see. Could they make this game close? I don't know. I'm looking at this line. Say it's 3.5. Bryce Perkins is red hot. This team is a whole lot better. Well coached by Mike Nolan. Yet again, another week where a better coach is going to come in and outcoach CJ Johnson and his coaching staff. They got running backs, Nate McCurry and Toa. They got a quarterback who's red hot. They got a wide receiver who's making plays downfield, number 17, Vaughns. What does Houston have? They got Jalen McClendon, Zaquandre White, maybe Keys on the outside, at wide receiver, and Mims. I don't see that wide receiving unit doing anything well against this Panthers defense. Unfortunately, I chose the over at 39.5. This could be a game where I could easily say, no, I'm going to take the under. I don't see Houston scoring much. But you're talking about McClendon. He's also mobile. Yet again, this is a game that the coaching staff from Houston should say, you know what? We're going to play this game like if it's the freaking championship game. And you have to, if you have any chance to get to the playoffs. So you open up that playbook. You utilize your weapons the best way you can. Zaquandre at running back, McClendon at quarterback. Those are your 2 weapons right there. Kirk Merritt could come in every now and then. Those are your weapons right there. Your defense is going to keep you in the game. Your defense is going to keep you in the game. But I just think Michigan comes in with the mindset, and I think they're going to run this football down their throats. And when they go to pass, unless you can get to Bryce Perkins, if you could keep Bryce Perkins constantly on second and long, third and long, you might have a chance. But we have seen from time to time, teams come blitzing, they get burnt. They get there, but they don't wrap up. Bryce Perkins constantly spinning around a tackle, looking like a solidified running back, gets hit, bounces off, and continues running, or he makes a throw downfield because of his mobility, got a receiver open downfield. That's what I'm saying. I just see Michigan coming in, running the damn football against Houston's defense, and they're going to try to keep the down and distance short. Houston's going to have to come up with a crazy defensive game plan. Maybe bring in the safeties more up. Maybe take one of your slot corners and do one of those. Okay, I'll check over and force the guy on top of number 17 to come back on the inside. Maybe a corner blitz every now and then. But I'm looking at this game, and after last weekend showing with what Houston did, the coaching staff, I felt like the coaching staff lost that game. Me personally, if I was the OC in that second half, it would have been Saquandre White and Kirk Merrick type game. I would have had McClendon doing a lot of rollouts, play actions too. All I saw was Birmingham pushing their front seven right up into his face. They kept the outside pressure in. They didn't allow McClendon to get to the outside, but there was no need for that. You got to shorten the down. Your first down is the most important play in every game. In every down, I should say, right? Houston came out, should have ran the ball. Well, at least design a play for Jalen McClendon to at least take the snap from center, make it look like he's going to pass, and it's a design run, right? I didn't see much motions either. Got to use those guys in motion, man. You got to help out your O-line. You got to help out. Where's the tight end for Houston? I don't know what's going on with that coaching staff. Just too much talent. Very disappointing season in my book with the Houston Roughnecks. It looked like they were coming of age with McClendon, and they were red hot. They were coming along at the same time that Michigan was finding themselves. So this is a funny game, right? Because both these teams were coming along together at the right time. And unfortunately, last weekend's game with Houston and Birmingham probably demoralized the club. They're probably saying to themselves, we can't hang. We can't hang with the best teams. We had them on the ropes, and we let them off the ropes. Michigan's coming in saying, we're solid all around. All we got to do is stay in the game, and we'll find a way to win. Look what happened against the Renegades. Now, I'll say this. Michigan, I don't want to say you got lucky. You deserve to win, but it was the way you won. I think the refs screwed that last second all up. I don't believe there was 1 second left. If you look at the replay carefully, the minute Bryce Perkins goes into the air, there's 2 seconds left on the clock. As he's coming down, there's 1 second. By the time he hits the ground, 0. What they're saying is that Mike Nolan ran down across the field, and immediately, the minute Bryce Perkins hit turf, there was a timeout. I want you to, guys, look back, UFO fans, look back at that game. I'm not trying to piss off Michigan fans. You guys deserve that win. The fact that you guys came back, stayed in the game, defense made some great plays. Your offense was unbelievable with Bryce Perkins. I mean, Bryce Perkins won this game outright, okay? This was the Bryce Perkins MVP game. But I want to be realistic. Now, maybe I saw it wrong. I doubt it. I know what I saw. Now, I was hurt by this game because if you saw my whiteboard last weekend on my Week 7 picks, I had the Renegades to win. Okay. I had the over at over. Okay. So I was right there, 2-0 with that. And obviously the Renegades to win with the +1. Was it +1? I think it was +1 or something like that, right? Yeah, +1. So I was 3-0 with 1 second left. 3-0 on a 3-leg parlay, single game 3-leg parlay. I was 3-0. And that 1 second, I ended up going 0-2-1. Yeah, I was upset. I was pissed. I saw myself jumping off the couch like, yeah, I'm 3-0. I'm 3-0. And then they turned around and went, no, 1 second left. No fucking way. 1 second left. And Michigan capitalized on it, right? Toa, number 35. They weren't going to stop him at the goal line. You knew, you know what was crazy? It was almost like you knew this guy was getting the ball, right? You just knew he was going to win the game, right? They didn't even stack the line of scrimmage. You had a corner, I don't know who his name was, comes up from the outside to try to force Toa on the inside or try to make a tackle. It was more like an ole. Like I'm not sticking my head in there. This guy's gonna kill me. I'm just gonna ole. Like he had like it wasn't even a full-hearted attempt to bring this guy down. It was almost like a arm tackle. Like I play corner. I'm not a linebacker. I'm just gonna go in and arm tackle. I'm gonna flail my arms at the guy. That's why you lose games like that. That's why Arlington's 3-4 as we speak. But it was a great comeback. Give Michigan its due. But I questioned that 1 second. I just need UFO fans to keep replaying that. And I know that the UFL, when it was all over, they were replaying it. There were times where they didn't even show the play clock because they knew the truth. We fucked up. There was no 1 second left. By the time Perkins hit the ground, there was 0 seconds. There was 0 seconds. Michigan fans, you know that. There were Michigan fans that knew that. And by some miracle, Mike Nolan got that timeout in. No, there should have been a super challenge on that. I don't know what Bob Stoops was thinking. They did review it, but it's almost like a super challenge. But still, when you review a play like that, it's a bang-bang play. When you review it, of course, it's going to show a nanosecond of 1 going to 0. So where do you mark the 1? As he's hitting the ground? Because when you hit the ground, right, it went from 1 to 0. As soon as he hit the ground, it went to 0. What was that 1 second while he was in the air, right? Hitting the ground, it goes to 0. Yet the UFL and the replays said, oh no, we're giving them a 1 second. We're going to make this game exciting. We're going to screw Vegas better. That's how I took it. I'm sitting at home going, I got this shit at 3-0. Yeah. I'm jumping up and down, you know. And then 1 second, a nanosecond, the UFO awards Michigan another down. And what do they do with it? They score. True, Arlington should have stopped the play. All right, Arlington fucked up. They didn't get the right defense out there. They couldn't stop the play. But there should have never been a play. But people are going to argue. Michigan fans are going to argue. And they're right. They're going to argue. You still have to stop us. And they did. Michigan got the tie. Then they went for the 1 point. They got it with Toa. Game over. And these guys go home. And Casino P loses a 3-leg parlay. Should have been 3-0. Go 0-2-1. Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks a lot, refs. Thanks a lot, Vegas. Who knows? Right? Money in the bank for the sports bettors, and then it turns into, nope, Vegas robbed you again. Okay? So that's how that game ends. But looking at this game, Vegas could trip us up. That over and under at 39.5. That could be Vegas's way of saying, listen, this game's going to be in the high 40s. So we're going to trip you guys up. We're going to give you the over and under at 39.5. We know Michigan's a better team, so we're going to put the spread real high at -3.5. So you're expecting Michigan to win by 4. Yeah, okay. It might. If that spread goes higher, I'm not taking Michigan. If that spread goes past 4.5, I'm sticking with the Houston Roughnecks with the plus. I just think Michigan's going to win this game. They really eke out wins, but they're a solid football team, and it's working for them. So I'm going with the -3.5. Michigan money line over at 39.5 and the spread at -3.5. Let's move on. I think enough was said about that last second victory, man. I'm pissed. Okay, and the final game for us to review, Renegades at the DC Defenders. Okay, Renegades, disappointing. Yet again, another team that had a demoralizing loss at the end. After starting 3-1, they pull into this game at 3-4. And now it's a rematch against the team that really destroyed the momentum of Arlington. Or basically, what was it, a couple of weekends ago, DC went into Arlington and just manhandled them at the end with a comeback of mega proportions. So is this payback for the Renegades? So is this a game where the Renegades are going to say, we were winning that game. We were kicking your ass. And we're going to prove it today. We're going to come out here and we're going to beat you down. We're going to show you that we were the better team that day. We just made a couple of mistakes, and you guys capitalized on it and beat us. Because that's exactly what happened. What was it, 37-33 was the final in that game a couple of weekends ago? So where the Renegades could have easily had gotten their 4th victory, they lost to DC that day. Probably changed their whole season. They never recovered. Then they come back and blow a game against Michigan. I just think this team is, Bob Stoops is a hell of a coach. But I just think his team, 2 deflating defeats at the end, last-second defeats. And I just think it's just too much for a team that at one point was 3-1. Now they're heading to DC, where they have the second-best crowd in the UFL, the beer snake going. DC knows what's at stake. DC's in first place. They want to stay in front of the St. Louis Battlehawks. They want this game. It's at their home crowd. Their defense is playing well. The interior line, that Jordan Wallace kid at DT, what a monster game he had. Okay? And now you're playing at home against the Arlington Renegades, a team that pretty much was beating you throughout the first half. And if it wasn't for a couple of terrible, terrible turnovers, you lose that game. So DC, how are they going to come out for this game? If Jordan Ta'amu is not on his game, then this could be one of those upsets for the weekend. Yet again, another good game I'm interested in watch. Does Arlington save their season? They're going to have to play their best football. Is Kalen Ballage going to be back? I don't like that number 17 who's running the ball right now with Arlington. He has somewhat flashes every now and then, but I'm not sold on him. The O-line's been terrible lately for Arlington. Too many sacks, Luis Perez. Obviously, he's not a mobile quarterback. You got to do a better job protecting him. And here comes DC again with their blitzing defense, the interior line, the edge rushes. I just think DC just has enough to win this game. Might be a closer game than what I'm expecting. Okay, might be a closer game than what I'm expecting. Might be a defensive game. Because the Renegades do play these defensive games every now and then, right? But you saw what happened at the end of that Michigan game. They just couldn't keep a mobile quarterback in the pocket. And now they're going to face another mobile quarterback in Jordan Ta'amu, who's in the running for MVP. I've been a big critic of his play unfairly at times because lately I've seen better football from him. He's definitely getting some touch on that long throw. Braylon Sanders has come out of nowhere these past 2 weekends and it's played out of his mind. Haven't heard much from Ty Scott. Hopefully he's back soon. I don't know if it's an injury he suffered or something. Mickens, again, still doing his thing. The two tight ends, Moore and the other kid. The weapons are there. The running game just isn't there for DC. The running game, you got Roland, who every now and then gets a carry, but he's very, very dangerous out of the backfield. And he's a dangerous receiver as well. So DC, when it comes to receivers, I can see why Jordan leads the league in passing yards. Obviously, I'm going to give the edge for the MVP race right now to Bryce Perkins. But Jordan is there. He is playing well football. So is Luis Perez. But unfortunately, his O-line's not protecting him. I just don't know if it's enough for them to get past DC this weekend. Without that running game by Arlington to help out Luis Perez, he did throw over 300 yards this weekend. Some of those passes were out of desperation. When he's trying to get out of the pocket, he's under a lot of duress lately. He does have solid receivers in Tyler Vaughns. Okay, but it just hasn't been there for him. He's got Canella at tight end, had a big game. But it was the way they lost to DC a couple of weekends ago, and then the way they lost this past weekend to Michigan. I put them in the same category as the Houston Roughnecks. Two demoralizing losses, just two bad losses. It's the way you lost. And now you're asking Arlington to come up huge in a game at DC where DC's playing for first place. Because they know a loss like this could devastate their season. And then they could fall to second place if St. Louis takes care of business. They got DC as -2.5 favorites. That's a tough one. That's a tough bet. DC at -2.5 is tough. But I'm going to roll with it. I'm going to take the DC Defenders as my money line to win the game because it is at DC, the second best crowd in the UFL, with the beer snake going. I think the over and under, I believe I took the over at 42.5. I'm going to show the whiteboard in a few. And I'm going to take the -2.5. To take DC across the board is a risk in itself. DC, they should win this game. They're a much better team defensively. They do have a good secondary. Arlington won't be able to get that ball to their receivers if Luis Perez is on his ass. And that's what DC does. They have blitz schemes. They force turnovers. You saw that in their first matchup. I see this happening again. Now it's at DC. Is there an upset in the air in this game? You could, if you want to take that risk and take Arlington, okay. The over and under is a risk too because I'm taking the over, 42.5. This could be 27-23, could end up in the high 20s for both teams. It also could be in the low 20s for both teams. And I think this is why Vegas put it at 42.5. They're expecting 43 to 44 points, maybe higher, to happen. Or they're just trying to trip you up again and see if you get baited into taking the over. I took the over. Overs have been hitting. Do I see 4 overs this weekend? No, I don't. But I took the overs. Do I see that happening? No. If I had to pick some unders, this would be one of the games. It could be a defensive battle. I think both coaches are going to come up with game plans to make sure that they don't make mistakes. But DC plays on the edge. They're one of those teams where they don't give a rat's ass what game plan you have. We're coming at you. We don't care if you decide to do the running game. We're gonna blitz going towards the quarterback, and if the running back's in the way, we're gonna take him down. I don't know if Kalen Balaj is even going to play in this game. I don't know what impact he's been doing lately. I haven't seen much of him. They got to get back to this guy. The running back they got now is just not. It's not a threat I mean, I'm not disrespecting the guy. I just don't think they got the right play caller for the guy. So I'm going with DC all across the board. The over and under is at risk. I mean, if there was a game that I could go under, it's this game, as well as maybe a couple of other games. I'm taking the over all weekend. Because it's that time of year now. It's week 8. I think coaches are going to open up their playbooks. They want to position themselves for the playoff push. They want to position themselves and make sure they win the division. This is a game that DC's playing for the division. They're going to get that rematch with St. Louis. I don't know if it's next weekend after this one or what, but they're going to get a rematch. And this game is going to play into it. You win this game and you win further down, you win the division. You already won up on St. Louis. You already won up. And you're going to get that rematch. -2.5. You see them winning by 3, yeah. If Jordan plays the way I know he can play, rolling out, being mobile, getting the ball downfield, it seems like he's starting to hit his targets down the field. There's still a little bit of inconsistency at times when they get into the red zone. But Braylon Sanders is breaking out. Ty Scott needs to get back into the passing game a little bit. Mickens doing his thing. Roland doing this thing. I just don't see Arlington winning this game. They're going to need about 2 or 3 turnovers to win this game because I just think the defense of DC is going to come after Luis Perez. And they're coming off 2 bad losses. They're 3-4 now, Arlington. I just think it demoralized them the way they lost last weekend in the last second. Just a terrible way to lose. Terrible way to not, win that game at the end. Let me show you the whiteboard again. All right? You guys got to mix and match it. Okay? So we reviewed all the games and why I'm going this way. Doesn't mean you have to go this way. I'm just telling you how I'm going, and then you mix and match. I'm just trying to give you an edge from these games. Okay? Those are my money line picks, my over and unders. You can see all the O's for the overs. Doesn't necessarily mean that's going to happen, but overs have been hitting like crazy these past few weekends. Now, does that mean that all the overs are going to hit this weekend? That's not a sure thing. But I am going to take the overs because there's always that one weekend where all of a sudden a miracle happens. That could be the miracle right there with the overs. Why I say overs? Because some of these matchups, like the first game, Showboats and the Brahmas, 2 1-6 teams, they're going to open up their playbook. They're going to let shit fly. And a game like that ends up a high-scoring game where everyone was expecting, these are 2 shit teams. They got no offenses. They're inconsistent in the red zone. They got offenses. They're just inconsistent in the red zone. And maybe this is the game where he just gets shit right. That's why I'm taking the overs. And then you look at that second game, that Stallions and St. Louis Battlehawks game of the weekend. I'm taking the over on that because I'm expecting both teams to play this. They could play it tight, but it could also be an over game. When you look at the under, what type of score are you expecting? 23-20? That's what I'm expecting. That's why I'm going with the over. Are you expecting 23-17? Are you expecting 20-17? It could easily be a 20-17 game, which could put it at under, but I'm going with the over. Same could be said with the Michigan and Houston game. It could go under. And I took the over. All right? I took the over on that. And it could end up under. Okay? So I don't know. I'm looking at the early lines for these games and these matchups. Renegades, 42.5 with the over and under. There was one sports book, couldn't get the name off the bat, that actually had that Michigan at Houston game at over and under 43. Then there was another one, and most of them are saying over and under at 39.5. So whichever sports book put this one up at 43 as the over and under, that's interesting. Because I'm looking at my notes right now, and I made a point of that. I should have brought it up before, but I made a point of that. It's the only one showing at over and under 43. That's why I took the over on mine at 39.5. Most of them were showing 39.5, and I took the over. So, again, all these games, I took over. I'm expecting the playoff push this weekend. I'm expecting the good teams to show why they're good teams. I'm expecting the bad teams to play exactly the inconsistent football they've been playing all year. And when we get to player props, right, just looking at some of my notes, when we get to player props, Showboats, Dresser win. He's good for maybe 200 plus yards. Jonathan Adams, maybe 40 plus receiving yards. Wes Hills, probably 30 plus rushing yards and a touchdown. Maybe Deneric Prince, the same thing. For San Antonio's side, Kevin Hogan, 200 plus yards maybe. John Trey Kirkland, maybe 30 plus yards. I'm not sold on some of these player props. Like I said, player props are very unpredictable in this league with the rotation of quarterbacks and stuff like that. Anthony McFarland, I don't know if he was injured this past weekend, but if he plays, now they got that kid, Jay Sean Corbin. Interesting guy, right? Imagine if you had taken him last week, you would have made a lot of money with that plus, right? So that's a guy to think about. Second game against Stallions, you could pick any of their receivers. Quarterbacks, I would stay away from. Case Cook is inconsistent and getting injured now. Jamal Smith, I don't know much about him. Running backs, no. Receivers, Deion Kane continues. Jay Sternberger. Those would be my player props from the Stallions. You just got to look at what you're getting from Deion Kane. Is he going to give you 50 plus receiving yards and a touchdown? He's good for that, I think. Jay Sternberger for one touchdown. He's good for that. Whoever starts at quarterback might be good for one touchdown, but we ain't going to know until up to that game time, right? St. Louis, Max Duggan, I could put him in for one passing touchdown. Depending if Hakeem Butler plays, you could use him. I don't know. I mean, when he plays, he's having phenomenal yardage. Maybe you could use him as a player prop. Jacob Sellers, probably been a little bit disappointing these past few weekends. Hasn't been getting into the end zone lately. I don't know if I'm done with him as a player prop, but you can still keep him as a player prop. Michigan, obviously, Bryce Perkins. 200 plus yards passing, a touchdown, maybe a mobile touchdown. Definitely a player prop. Toa, definitely a touchdown prop. Nate McCurry, a touchdown prop. Number 17, Vaughns, definitely if Perkins goes into the end zone, is always looking for that guy, so he could be good for a touchdown prop. Houston, obviously, McClendon is their guy. Saquon J. White. Those are their two playmakers. Maybe Kurt Merritt every now and then, maybe 20 plus rushing yards, maybe, I don't know. But those are their playmakers. Then the other game, you got Arlington. Obviously, Luis Perez is definitely 220 plus yards every game, a touchdown. Keenan Balaj has fallen off the ladder. I don't know if they're using him right. The receivers, other than Canella between the 20s, I don't know who's going to get in the end zone for Luis Perez. As far as DC, Jordan, obviously 200 plus yards. Mobile, he could probably rush one in. Any one of those receivers are good for the end zone for at least a touchdown, right? Like Ty Scott could get in there, Mickens could get in there, Roland could get in there. Rollins is probably the best player prop of all of these guys because he does run as well as catch, and he does get in the end zone from time to time. Abram Smith maybe around the goal line as a touchdown. Braylon Sanders has been coming on strong. So those will be my player props for this weekend coming up for week 8. But crazy finishes this past weekend. Probably even more crazier finishes this weekend coming up for week 8. And that's why it's an unpredictable league. I'm still upset about that last second win by Michigan. I'm not a Michigan hater. Please don't get that twisted or wrong. I just felt that the referees got it wrong. Even the replay booth. How can you? I mean, I know people are going to say, if the replay booth didn't get it wrong, what makes you think they got it wrong? Listen, when you're in the air, he begins to flight at 2 seconds. As he's coming down, changes to 1. He lands. It's at 0. Yet for some reason, it was like a quick nanosecond, like 2, 1, boom. And just as it went to 0, he lands. And Mike Nolan actually got that timeout in. You don't even see that in the NFL. But who knows if all the money have rolled towards Arlington. Like I said, some games are played out funny. Listen. I don't like to do that with sports bettors. But sports bettors that have knowledge knows how these games go. The only thing I can say about that ending is that Michigan deserved to win because Arlington did lose that game. They had themselves to blame. Bryce Perkins right now is my MVP. He continues to be my MVP. Coach of the year continues to be Shannon Harris after losing to a coordinator as well as a head coach. Okay. Wide receivers, there's a whole bunch of these guys, man. I'm looking around and I'm saying to myself, man, if Hakeem Butler was healthy all year round, he'd be probably the best one of the group. But he's been injured. I'm looking around right now in my notes and I'm saying to myself, man, Memphis Showboat's got a couple of receivers there, and Jonathan Adams and Lassiter. Birmingham, Deion Kane. So if it's wide receivers, I'm rolling with Deion Kane, right? He's been a splashy guy. And he's been, also a kick returner. Running backs, Toa right now. Toa came out of nowhere. This human bowling ball is making a difference for this football team. Not to take nothing away from Nate McCrary, because I just feel like once they added Toa to the mix, it changed the concept of their offense. They went from a poor pass blocking offense to now a really dangerous football team because they're a good run unit. And it's opening up the passing game. And with Bryce Perkins' mobility, why he's in my MVP. So right now, heading in towards the end of the season, we got what? Week 8, 9, and 10 left. We got 3 weekends left. And right now, these are my candidates ahead of everybody else. And if I missed out on someone, I'm sorry. But that's the way it looks. That's the way it looks right now. Tight end. What's that? Jordan Thomas is becoming a weapon for Birmingham. I know Jay Sternberger is there too. They kind of both feed off each other, and at the same time, they take away votes from each other, right? Because if you say who's the best tight end in the league, I mean, Jordan Thomas is playing great. San Antonio doesn't use their tight end. They have a great one themselves in Elise Mack. They don't even use him. And, I'm looking around and, I think the best tight end right now is Jordan Thomas from Birmingham. Every time they're in the red zone, they like to throw those alley-oops to him because he's tall. He's a big dude. Canella from the Arlington Renegades, he's also solid at tight end. But right now, I'm going by what I'm seeing. And I think right now, You could say it's about even, right? Because Canelo makes big plays too. But I just think Jordan Thomas has been the go-to guy for Birmingham. But let me show you the whiteboard again before we get off. Okay. That's how I'm rolling this weekend. I hope that was informative. Mix and match. You don't have to necessarily take it my way. You're probably looking at the over and unders and calling me crazy for taking the overs on every game. And you might be right. When I look back, if I had to take over and under or an under, it would probably be that DC Defenders game against Arlington and maybe that Battle Hawks and Birmingham game. That first game is baiting me to take the under because it's between two shit teams. But I just think they're going to open up the playbook and go over. Well, I hope you guys have a better weekend than I have. I think my overall record, let me see if I took some notes on that. What was my overall record? Okay, that's 4. Yep, 4-2. I think I ended up 6. Let me see if I got that right because you want to be accurate, right? Oh, here I go. I ended up 6-5-1 for the weekend. 6-5-1 for the weekend. Yep. Ended up 6-5-4. Yeah, 6-5-1 for the weekend. On my money line, over and unders, and the spread all together, 6-5-1. The push being that Renegades game. I had the Renegades to pull the upset. They lost at the last second, and I had them at +1. It was a push. And yeah, definitely, 6-5-1. Money line overall 17-11 for the season. Over and under 16-12 for the season, and the spreads 14-9-1 for the season. Again, I'm above 500. I wish I could do better. It's really hard and difficult, especially on unpredictable leagues like this. But anyway, I'm praying and hoping you guys do better than me this weekend. I'm trying to give you an edge for free. You don't have to go paying anybody for it, okay? So I hope you guys have a lot of fun this weekend and do a lot better than I did. And keep posting up, guys. You know, I love hearing from Easy Money Sniper, Chucky Valentine. Love to hear from these guys. Just keep posting up what you do, you know, compared to what I've been doing. And it's cool. It's cool when you guys do that. I really appreciate that. So keep doing it, guys. Keep doing it. Love to hear from you. Hit that like and subscribe button for me too. You know, much appreciated. I'm Casino Pete, and wishing you the best for week 8.